Welcome to Sweetcast. This is Clint, and I have got 10 ways that the comic book industry could be reformed. Number one is tell stories for everyone. And I mean, not just superhero stories. I realize there are a lot of great superhero stories out there, and there's a long tradition of superhero comics. But there are so many people out there who don't enjoy superhero comics or who enjoy other kinds of stories. And I think it's a good idea to explore other kinds of stories. And so there's a lot of room there for growth. And I think that's important. If the comic book industry wants to stay alive, they need to broaden out and start reaching the mainstream market and start touching other genres. I realize that is happening, but more could definitely be done there. Number two, cater to new readers. Something that really bothered me when I was a new reader is when there'd be something going on and there's an asterisk and it says, see issue number 135, or it sends you off to a different mini series that you need to read. It really takes me out of the story, and it makes me feel like I don't have the complete story, like I'm missing something. You know, for some people that might be great because you're really into the massive expanded universe. For many new readers, it is jarring, and it is, it makes them feel like they're missing out on an inside joke. That's the best way I can describe it. It feels like a sales pitch in the middle of some kind of dramatic monologue, dramatic fight scene. Somebody will mention something, and it's almost like a sales pitch to go buy some other miniseries, or, you don't have the complete story. That's really irritating. Could you imagine if in a TV series they did stuff like that? I mean, it doesn't really make sense, and it doesn't bode well to new readers. Another thing is making standalone stories, story arcs at least, that make sense and they resolve at the ending. There's a problem, there's a resolution, all in one story arc. That's really important for new readers. I think that does exist, but it could definitely be something that happens more. A great example, and I think I want to make a video on this, is Batman: The Long Halloween. That was one of the first graphic novels that I bought, and when I read it, it made sense. I had some background information on Batman. I didn't read the entire canon that existed, but reading through Batman, The Long Halloween, I enjoyed the story. It resolved at the end, and it didn't leave me feeling like I needed to continue this ever-long epic. It was just a nice story arc that had some kind of resolution at the end. So making stories digestible, making them in chunks, that doesn't mean you can't make several additions to the same storyline. You can make it many, many Batman stories that follow each other one after the other. But when you're reading, if you have to understand information that happened years in the past, then it really is a turnoff to new readers. So cater to new readers. Okay, number three is read comics in public. There is kind of a stigma still that, has been around for quite a while with comic book readers. And so, I was thinking about this, and I think it would be helpful if, you're on a bus driving and you're reading a comic while you're there instead of being on your phone. Maybe you're reading a comic on your phone. Having treating them that way, and it really helps other people be interested and sort of feel like it's not some kind of nerdy hobby that nobody's into. So yeah, read comics in public. Number four, sell comics in Walmart. Now, I'm not saying specifically in Walmart. It could be 7-Eleven. It could be, a great place would be an airport kiosk where they're selling all sorts of other things. And I realize that this could be controversial. I'm not saying that comic book stores shouldn't exist, because they should, and there's definitely a place for those. But having comic books that are nice, I'm even thinking like one-shot comics where you can just pick up one issue and enjoy a story. Those kinds of things are actually really helpful to get new readers into it, and it broadens your audience. Actually, I think the first comic that I read was from a dollar store, and it was the original, I think it was like the first 3 issues of Spider-Man, like the original Stan Lee Spider-Man. And yeah, it was at a dollar store. I don't really remember the circumstances, but I bought it and I read it, and it was fun. You know, it was just old school, but it was fun. And so having comics where people can read them easily and just enjoy one single issue, I think that's important. Okay, number 5, alternative publishers need to exist. And, I've mentioned this before on the channel. Right now, there's DC and there's Marvel. Yes, there are other publishers. And yes, those publishers have done some really cool things. But I think there needs to be other publishers that reach other kinds of niches and genres that sort of open up the market to other readers. Maybe they're not doing superhero comics, they're doing something else different than Marvel and DC are doing. But there has to be some other alternatives. Number 6, respect the medium. Tell stories that play to the strengths of comics as a medium. Now, every medium is different. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. Comics have some really great strengths. They also have weaknesses. So rather than tell stories in a comic format that, you'll often hear people, when a non-superhero story is told in a comic book form, then that story is really just a failed screenplay. And I think that's not the way I would like to think about it. I've read several non-superhero stories in comics, and yeah, they can be really fun. They're really great, especially when the medium is used and the medium is respected. And I'm starting to lose my voice. I have got a cold, so I'm going to get through the next few here. Number 7, respect readers. Don't use comics as a platform to preach to other people. Entertain us. Entertain your readers. Don't educate your readers. And so this is really interesting to me because this is a big complaint that I have. I know many other people do. That's what Comicsgate is all about, and that is too much politics inside of comics. And I have a sort of nuanced opinion about that, which I'll get to later. Like, for example, if you have a certain audience of people who are going to be reading, let's say, The Punisher, and you think that audience of people ought to have more empathy or, whatever it might be, don't take The Punisher and then make that comic sort of a preachy thing so you're reaching an audience and trying to teach them the right things to believe and feel. That's not the place to be teaching people about social justice. There's a reason why social justice preachy books don't sell well, and that's because nobody likes being preached to. Not only that, but even if you are into social justice or a certain political persuasion, even they don't want to read something that feels like you're going to some kind of you're reading doctrine. No one wants to do that. I think a good example was that comic quite a while ago, A is A, I think that's what it's called, or Mr. A, where it was based off of Ayn Rand's subjectivism or objectivism, I think it's called, that ideology, very libertarian leaning, and the superhero tried to embody those kinds of viewpoints and sort of teach you those kinds of lessons in a very in-your-face way. And that's fine, but can you imagine how annoying that would be to read? You want to read a story to be entertained, not to be preached to. So I don't care what your politics are. but don't use that as a platform to teach people or change opinions. Tell us a good story that, and stories can help you change opinions or see things in a different point of view. But don't preach to us. So that was number 7, respect the readers. Number 8, easy on the gimmicks. There are so many events that happen, especially with, Marvel's the big one I think about. So many events that happen and they get tiresome. It interrupts a book. If I'm enjoying a book and I'm reading along, all of a sudden there's this big event and I feel like I need to buy all the other comics to know what's going on. It gets really annoying. And so those, I think it's okay to use those sometimes, but it really gets abused sometimes. And I don't think that's healthy. And it almost feels like it's really catering to collectors of comics rather than readers of comics. And I have no problem with collectors. I like to collect myself, but primarily comics are meant to be read. So to me, that should be the first priority. Number 9, keep social responsibility out of the story. So this kind of gets to, I mentioned social justice, and I've got my own issues with how that's all brought up, but social responsibility is where this comes from. I know in any college in the country, they're teaching you about social responsibility. And the idea of that is if you own some kind of business, that business has a responsibility to give back to the community. And so to me, social responsibility could be, hey, we made money, we're going to donate some money to said cause, we're going to, highlight some kind of an issue, we're going to raise money, whatever it might be. But too often in comics right now, this social responsibility is really more into social engineering. And so it's built into the story itself. And that's not helpful. It's not helping anybody. It's just killing your sales and making bad comics. So go ahead and tell political stories. I don't have a problem with political stories. V for Vendetta is a great example. It's a very political book, but it's not teaching you or telling you how you should think and feel. It's presenting a story that is, it's a form of an allegory, and that story has a message. And so you're free to agree with it or disagree with it. It is what it is. There are a lot of books like that. 1984 is a great example. Animal Farm. These are all stories that sort of have a deeper political meaning. I really don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is when you're reading a book that has traditionally been some kind of just action fun thing, and all of a sudden you're being lectured to and you're just being told how you should think and feel. That's, there's no creativity, there's no symbolism there. It's not the same thing. And number 10, develop new talent. This is important because right now the comics industry is, relatively speaking, it's run by very few people. There's a lot of great talent out there. There's a lot of great ideas. I often will look at the Facebook group of the Independent Comic Creators Connection, and there's a lot of awesome art coming from there. There's a lot of people publishing stories, lots of great indie talent, but it's famously difficult to break into mainstream comics. So that's another reason why I think there needs to be other publishing options. But yeah, those guys that are making indie comics, keep at it. You guys are doing a great job. So that does it for my 10 reasons why or how the comics industry could be reformed. If you have better ideas or you think I'm wrong, please tell me in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And I am a really new channel and I would love to have some more subscribers. So please subscribe, leave me a comment, and I will see you soon.